Vitality.
Sanka as well played good. Fantastic out.
More refined and a more better understanding Vitality of where they want to go in the game.
Splyce have actually grouped up as a 5-man unit.
If Vitality managed to win this.
Maybe they just want a more front line, I'm not sure. Hey, Daisy.
Oh, that's not enough. They get blown up right there.
Second, and so is expect. They're going all in
for him right now. If they can melt through the shields, they just can't do it. And the rest of Giants caught in a massive strangleforce. G2 smelled blood.
We didn't even consider the playoff spot being an opportunity for Rocket. We thought the bottom four were fighting to stay out of relegation, but things have changed so quickly.
But what did we get from Misfits? And it's absolute dominance. He's gonna go right back down as Hansama goes on a rampage. Itachi's still up, still alive. Shockwave goes in, it goes wide. That's massive. Unicorns, they're coming in. They're going strong.
Origin yet to win a series this split so far. Things are looking pretty bleak for them.
This is really good teamwork from HDK, not leaving any man face-checking on his own.
Make sure we don't rush any of these plays and just focus on what we can do.
Every time we get some small lead, we need to really fast ask ourselves, what is the next proactive play? What are we doing, you know?
It's not important how the game starts, it's much more important who finishes the game.
To the European LCS, 2 weeks remain in the regular split and so much is on the line. 2 playoff spots remain up for grabs and the battle continues to rage at the bottom of the tables as teams fight to keep their head above the promotion tournament waters. We can see Splyce there setting up on stage for the first match of the day. Hello everyone, I'm Eva Supporter and joining me at the analyst desk is Mitch Krepo Voorspoels.
Did you
Token Belgian joke. Yes, I did.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you very much. No jokes needed, just compliments. Loving it. With 2 weeks remaining in the regular split, here is how the teams stand. 4 playoff spots have been locked already. Those 4 teams at the top of the table, and G2 Esports is still undefeated, raging on.
Yeah, massive game differential there as well. I'm also looking at the Unicorns in Group B. Quite a surprise. They started off really strong, and then for a moment, everybody was ready to write them off. And still, first place in Group B, looking for that bye.
Yep, and most recently beating out H2K for the second time. This split, bottom of the table for Group B. Gotta repeat it here, officially also locked into the promotion tournament is Origin now.
What a surprise.
Well...
I mean, we all saw it coming, so
Yeah,
they have their eyes set on promotion, which is a lot sooner this year.
It is all coming very quickly because the regular split ends April 2nd, difference from previous splits, so quickly that it is in 2 weeks, actually. The promotion tournament is coming up right after week 10, as are the quarterfinals of the playoffs.
Yeah, with the wonderful new format that we have here, we get another week of European LCS, which is great, but that means right after we go into quarters, we go into promotion tournament, but the goal is still 23rd of April right there, the EULCS Spring Finals in Hamburg.
In Hamburg, or the 22nd if you're playing a third place match, but as said, everything is just coming a lot quicker along than it was previous splits. Do you think that'll have a huge influence on what we will see?
I mean, it'll show an adaptability. Some teams are really good at preparing for a single opponent over the span of 2 weeks, but some of these teams will need to kind of come to terms with the standings the way they are at the end of week 10, and then they have a single week to prepare for the next round of matches. If anything changes there, new picks come out, they'll need to adapt on the fly. But I like it. I like it when it's fast-paced and teams have to really show how quickly they can adapt to new opponents in a row, because it shows versatility and flexibility.
That it does, and how exactly our European teams will be spending April depends very much on what happens this week. And here is what is on the cards. A bunch of matches. Today, Splyce versus Vitality will be the first, but I'm looking at that Rocket Misfits game of tomorrow, Krepo.
The Rocket hype train, 2-2, it keeps on going. 4 series wins, is it right now?
Yes.
Looking for a 5th. They beat Fnatic, who were considered above them by quite a margin. Obviously, Rocket was on the up and up, and Fnatic was on the way down, but the fact that they actually won that matchup created a really cool storyline, and maybe they can do it again. Can they work the magic against Misfits? A lot of people are kind of rooting against them and saying it's not possible, but I'd love to see an upset here.
Hey, and, you know, if they don't meet Misfits, they still have a chance to beat G2.
Yeah, of course, you know.
Well, they've themselves admitted that both of those would be hard, but it's definitely a match to watch tomorrow. But first up tonight is a battle between Splyce and Vitality. And seeing as we're very, very close to the end of the split, we wanted to talk about expectations versus reality. And let's start with Splyce. High expectations coming in. Why wouldn't it be? They had a fantastic summer split or end of summer split all the way up to Worlds and very close to G2 at the end.
Yeah, they went into Worlds as like the 3rd seed, but we kind of rated them the 2nd best team before Worlds finals happens. Obviously, they took a dip during Worlds, and HGK surprised many of us with the best performance right there. But that was all due to that 16-2 win-loss that they had at the very end of the split. Obviously, that last loss right there you see is a tiebreaker game where they were playing Science support. Obviously, Max played it right now, but super OP, but they won't bring it out. But it's interesting to see that kind of the same thing is happening right now in Spring.
Yeah, because we thought that they were on a downward trajectory in the beginning, but it seems that that ramp-up time is very similar to their summer split 2016 run, which should be good for them.
Yeah, it should be good. Now we obviously have to come to terms they played some weaker opponents, so if they really want to continue that upward trend, they need to start taking names of the big boys in their group, and they'll have to warm up with Vitality, but then the harder matches will still come for them. But Splyce, they've been known to perform well in scrims, and a lot of teams have been saying Splyce are actually not looking to find their footing. There's more of a translation error from the scrims environment to the stage.
So going into playoffs, this is what we really want to see now. We want Splyce to find that upward trajectory or find the good form right before playoffs.
And that handsome man on your screen just now, Trashy, I want to see him become a really good captain right there, a shot caller. Find some more engage-heavy champions that he can kind of put to work and really, win the games for Splyce.
Yeah, that's what we want to see. And if they manage to win one single game, that secures a playoff spot. And that would also then mean that Vitality is completely out of that playoff race. Now, playoffs is not something that we really see as reachable for Vitality. And if you talk about expectations versus the reality of the things that are actually true, then we hadn't expect them to be a top team, but a playoff run should have been in there.
Yeah, I think that's the goal for every organization when they start at the Spring Split. They have hopes, especially and dreams, and then they all get crushed. For Vitality, it was another kind of, was it poor scouting? They had the police Mighty Bear story for a while, obviously not the greatest Korean scouting right there, and now they had Hachani, came in as honestly, great support player, had a lot of good things said about him, but he couldn't find the direction in the games because he was always playing too forward and his team wasn't following. But then, once he was removed from the roster, we saw Vitality lost without any semblance of identity whatsoever. They were just playing like headless chickens.
Yeah.
Now, when Hachani came back, they're actually more willing to follow him, so that is good progression. Now, we don't know where does lead for Vitality, because if they stay in 4th spot, they're not playing relegations, they're not playing playoffs, and I would be surprised if they keep the entire roster together. So what growth they may get in these few weeks here, I don't know how much it'll benefit the organization.
Oh, that's definitely something to track and look at. And the identity, we just want to see an identity from them and something, because they can still keep Splyce from locking in, of course, that playoff spot if they manage to get out a win here. But it isn't seeming likely. Crepo, do you want to even have some predictions here?
For predictions, I mean, Splyce will take this serious, but it's very, very important for Splyce to take it 2-0 for their personal goals. And obviously, if Vitality want to keep their playoff dream alive, they need to win everything 2-0. That's very unlikely to happen.
Off the back of who do they
do that? This guy right here, Hachani, man, he's got to show up. He's got to lead them to victory, because he is kind of the shot calling component that brought more proactivity to the roster. So if they can follow him to war, maybe it can happen.
Or Nuktak, he had a fantastic week last week, so maybe there's a shot there for them. The players are almost ready for picks and bans, so let's send it over to the casters for game 1.
Thank you very much, Sharks, and welcome to the Caster Desk. I am Trevor Quickshot Henry. Joining me for this best of 3, it's Andrew Vedius Day. Are you pretty hyped?
I'm very hyped. I think this is going to be a fun matchup. I think that Vitality, they can play spoiler for Splyce, and they can actually deny them an opportunity to get far in the standings.
They absolutely can. Splyce will be playing for a potential 2nd place, which we'll talk about later today. Let's start with the rosters. It'll be Vitality on the blue side for game number 1. Splyce picked red, and therefore Cabochard in the top lane, Joko in the jungle, Nukeduck in the mid lane, Steelback and Hachani down bottom with their coach Irian will be on blue side for patch 7.5 picks and bans.
Meanwhile, facing Vitality and starting on the red side of the Rift, we have Splyce. In the top lane is Wonder, their jungler Trashy, and the mid lane is Senkox. AD carry is Kobe, their support Mickey, and coach Yamato Cannon.
All right, so they elected red side. 7.5 is now starting to become a little bit more stable. We didn't see the craziest of changes last week. Obviously, the rise of Vlad coming to mind.
We saw Fizz last week.
We saw
Quick
Fizz,
shot.
indeed.
We saw Fizz. We saw a lot of fun stuff last week in their series versus Origin. I feel that Splyce are the team to experiment. They are the team to bring crazy stuff out. We saw the Sion support yesterday, Quick Shot. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Mickey playing it. There was even discussion on PGL about Akali. Like, it's exciting.
We can hope.
Exciting.
We can hope. Okay, we can hope. And I think with Splyce being so close to a potential second seed and the implications, if Splyce takes second, it means they play the third seed in Group A, which is currently Fnatic or potentially Roccat. If Splyce end third, they end up playing against Misfits in the quarterfinal, and nobody wants to do that. We'll expand on how those numbers work out a little later. As far as picks and bans are concerned, Camille, Malzahar, and Olaf off the table.
So the Olaf, very specific ban towards Joko. He's brought it a lot throughout the regular season. Clearly, Splyce just showing a lot of respect. They don't want to give him that freedom. Fascinating that the Gragas ban has actually come out, because we have seen that since the return of IEM, since we've been playing on 7-4, 7-5, we've been seeing a lot more Gragas jungle, and it's something that Trashy has actually had a lot of success on. Now, I am thinking about this Elise pick. I think it has actually a lot of value in this in the current metagame. We've seen it heavily prioritized over in the EULCS, and I think that it is a jungler that Trashy actually has a lot of success on.
And with Graves and Rengar also off the table, surely that increases the value of that Elise potential pick. For Vitality though, first pick, it's going to be the Lulu. Definitely raising in priority over the last couple of weeks. Teams now wanting to play her more, as she's had some buffs a few patches ago and other supports around her have taken nerfs. So there's that Elise you predicted.
So the Lulu is just a very well-rounded safe support right now. She sets up for a lot of individual peel comps, like we saw from G2 last week, the whole Kalista Lulu composition. There's also been talk, Origin brought out the Lulu Kog'Maw composition. She's just such a great lane bully, and she also just scales very nicely into the mid game. Now, when you're looking at the rest of the composition for Vitality, I think that it would be safe to pick up something like, you could go for an Ezreal or a Caitlyn right now, look towards that hyper carry, but instead, they're actually just focusing on getting a few comfort picks.
Yeah, safety and comfort there for Joko with his Lee Sin. One of his most played champions now. This will be the 4th time this split. Vladimir locked in for Nukeduck. What options does Senkux have in the mid lane to run into this? It looks like the answer will be Orianna at the moment.
He could go for a Cassio as well. Cassio scales quite nicely and does well into a side lane. The risk you have with an Ori is the fact that Vitality are already starting to set up for a possible 1-3-1. It's not that unknown for Cabo to play more carries in the top lane. We've seen a shift back towards these carry top laners, which means that Splyce could be in a bit of a difficult situation if they're not able to prevent this Vladimir from getting strong enough to go into a side lane later on.
All right, so potential side lane pressure. You know, you talked about the Fizz a few minutes ago, Vedius. It's actually banned away by Vitality. They don't want to give that to Wonder. I'd love to see Wonder on Gnar. I think he's a phenomenal Gnar player, and also has been one of the star carries for Splyce these last few weeks. Great, reliable performances on really anything.
I think it would be very risky to blind pick a Gnar. If you're going to do it, you want to be picking it into the Renekton. But I think that, speaking of Renekton, he's taken off the board. I'm thinking now, like, champions like Nautilus rise very heavily in value, because you're looking at what possible answers are there for the Nautilus, with Gragas taken off the board, with Shen, Renekton, Fizz even being taken away. He's now, like, the strongest safety tanky top laner, and it would round things out nicely for Splyce, because then they've got a great engage, they have a solid front line, they have a good team fighting comp. Like, it would just round things out nicely for the overall comp, and then if they finish things off with, like, a Tahm Kench, they'd actually be in a very good position to force plays come the mid lane game.
So we have a little bit of everything. Front line, engage, team fight power. It's just too standard for me. I want
it is
something,
very standard, yes.
I want something a bit more splicey, you know, a bit more flavorful, and we're going to get it. Kennen in the top lane. So is this an answer to a potential 1-3-1 here? Also a lane bully in the top lane if Vitality want to go for a tank?
He definitely can go into the side lane, especially against the Vladimir. That'd be absolutely fine. They're picking this preemptively with the expectation that a Nautilus will come out, and it will hopefully deter Vitality away from picking the Nautilus, because they're basically saying, well, look, if you're going to pick the Nautilus, it's going to be into a rough matchup against the Kennen. He's heavily going to outscale you in the late game, and he can be an answer to the Vladimir as well. But Vitality are just saying, you know what, we don't care. We want the tank, we want the front line, we want a form of engage, which I do feel they desperately need when the only other form of engage they would have had is the Lee Sin.
Yeah, very pick-oriented, of course. But that's going to make this laning phase very difficult for Cabochard, won't it? Against the Kennen, Wonder will get his hands in the top lane, and Mickey's going to round up the team composition with further pick power
And I
in
love
the
it.
Thresh.
I love this because what we've been seeing more from Mickey in recent weeks is his movement away from champions like the Zyra and the Karma and more into these pick champions. We've been seeing Camille from him, we've been seeing Braum, we've been seeing Tahm Kench, and we've been seeing Thresh. And Mickey, as a player, is very much about trying to make plays. He's about trying to set things up on the map. And on champions like Thresh, he has the ability to do it. Now, if you guys have listened to Crapo in the last few weeks, you would have heard him talk a lot about Ignite Thresh and the amount of power that it has during the laning phase. It's very risky to take that into a Lucian Lulu, which is why he's decided to be a little bit more reserved. He's going more towards this mid to late game with the exhaust.
Let's find out how much it'll work out. I also like the reduction of burst damage for that Vladimir when he decides to jump into those team fights. Going to prove to be exceptionally valuable. Steelback getting his hands on the Lucian as well to round up that team comp as Arian and Yamato Cannon shake hands and head off stage. Team composition-wise, fairly straightforward, I feel, for the Vitality side. Tank on the front line, let Vlad run at you.
I think the biggest difference is very much about Vitality have a pretty powerful bottom lane with the Lucian and the Lulu, and they should have pushing power with the Vlad in mid. And when we saw them play last week against Origin, this is something that they took advantage of very heavily to enable Joko and Hachani to roam into the enemy jungle, get deep vision, and try and force fights, get picks, which is where they get a lot of their early advantages.
I'm so glad you bring that up because it's been Trashy who stepped up for Splyce in the last few weeks, and he may be under pressure from the men on your screen from Vitality. Hachani, Steelback, and Joko. Can they synergize in the bottom half of the map? It's Splyce versus Vitality in week 9 of the EULCS. And as we've mentioned a few times already, if Splyce pick up a single game win, they guarantee mathematically their postseason playoff position. Vitality will then be locked into 4th.
And every team wants that, right? Like Splyce, thinking back to their last split, perhaps they're not performing as well as they would have liked to, but what is really nice to see is they followed a very similar growth pattern to what they did in their summer split, but they started off a little rough. They were still figuring out the meta. They were still trying to find a style that works for them, but now they're at a point where they are considered one of the top teams in Europe. We have to remember that Fnatic, due to their loss to Rocket, you could make the argument that right now, Splyce is the stronger side because they haven't dropped a game yet to this bottom tier team, but this could be the opportunity for Vitality to get that upset.
Well, we're going to see how much Hachani is going to improve the Vitality squad, right? Last week it looked better, but it was against slightly weaker opposition.
It was.
Splyce will be a very different kettle of fish than Origin were last week. And we're looking at this lane setup. So, Veris, you're anticipating Steelback and Hachani with this Lucian Lulu to have some fun into Kobe Mickey. Does that level 1 trade make any differences in your opinion?
I mean, it will definitely hurt Hachani a little bit, but once the minions show up, the problem that Mickey's going to have is that every time he walks up to try and harass Hachani or Steelback, he's going to end up taking minion aggro, right? Like, it's super easy for the hyper-mobile Lucian to be able to very quickly punish Thresh as he tries to look for these trades, but Hachani, right now, he's not respecting the fact that vision had already been established by Mickey, and the fact that Splyce have gotten themselves a good early push. So for the level 1, this could very well go in favor of Splyce, but around the level 2, level 3 mark, Splyce's bottom lane have to be very careful of the dueling power of Lulu and Lucian.
Yeah, we'll find out if the LL combo works in their favor. Level 2, going to get raced towards on this next minion wave. And it looks like Hachani and Steelback the potential to lose that race. If we take a look up top, Wonder should have a field day. So if Vitality can push down bottom, with Steelback and Hachani up in the top lane, surely Wonder has all of the harass potential.
He does. Cannon is really annoying to deal with in lane. Usually you max the W because you want to get that 5th proc on your lightning mark, which means that you get very easy harass. You walk up to them, you apply the mark, you hit them with the electrical surge. Ah, no, I've taken harassment, and you're forced to back off. It's really difficult to trade back against the Cannon. But he takes a while, like in terms of his teamfight value, depending on what he chooses to build, it actually looks like he's going more for the AD split push build rather than the AoE teamfight cannon build, which means that Splyce have said, look, we can see what you're trying to do with the Vladimir, and we're going to match it with the cannon later on.
We'll see how well Wonder can handle that side lane pressure. We caught a glimpse, by the way, as Joko is picking up his blue buff. Oh, great death sentence onto Hachani. Takes a couple autos for his trouble. But to finish the thought, Kobe shot the Hawk shot all the way across the minimap. And it spotted Joko out. Splyce revealed Joko with the vision and pings, and That's why Trashy's moving in to steal some of those Raptors and XP.
Now, I want to take this very quick moment to illustrate the level difference that you now see between the two junglers. What you will have heard a lot of color casters talking about in the last few weeks is the Raptors start. And the reason why you start Raptors is because they give you more experience. Now, what you've seen is that Trashy actually started on his Raptors, went red, went round to blue, took the Scuttle, and he got level 4. Joko, he started on his red, went up to Wolves, went up to blue, came back down, and he's only level 3, which is forcing Joko back and allowing Trashy a lot of pressure in the enemy jungle.
Especially with a pushing wave down bottom as Kobe and Mickey got the advantage early. It allowed Mickey to roam. Full support with Trashy before Steelback and Hachani could respond. So good opening play here by Splyce. Already 500 gold up because of some big camps being stolen away and some CS advantages for Wonder in the top lane.
It's just good pressure overall from Splyce, right? They know how to play aggressively in this lane. They know how to take advantage of very minor mistakes. But now you're starting to see that Hachani and Steelback are getting better at being able to trade back, right? I love the fact that Splyce, what you often see is in lanes that you think you're going to struggle in or lose in, you'll either go for the Boots 3-pot start or you go for the Longsword 3-pot start, right? In this instance, Kobe actually went for the Doran's Blade because him and Mickey feel comfortable enough that they can actually just trade as often as they want. And because of this early power advantage that you have by going for the Doran's Blade, it means that they're actually getting this push and they're actually forcing Vitality's bottom lane back.
And I think it's so important you bring up Kobe and Mickey being comfortable with the itemization and the lanes play, because this is a duo that has been playing together for a sizable length of time. Going on around a year for Kobe and Mickey as a duo, and Hachani and Steelback. Well, Steelback's had 3 different supports this split already. AOD, Nuke Duck, and the fabled return of Hachani. Well, let's see what he can do to, claw back this deficit. Splyce just slowly but surely inching forward with their gold difference to good farm.
Now, you need to keep your eyes on the top lane because the Trinket Ward has actually just ran out for Wonder. He's pushed up pretty far in the top lane. That could have been a great opportunity for Joko to actually try and push in, try and look for a gank. The minion wave wasn't actually that big for Wonder. But instead he's going to choose to play it safe. I guess that when you are playing a Nautilus, better to just be safe than sorry. Just get what farm you can, accept the deficit, and realize that in terms of the value in crowd control that I bring later on, it's going to be bigger than that of the cannon.
Yeah, point and click CC, always going to be exceptionally valuable. Looking at Trashy though, he was the one that went for that early invade, doing it again onto this Raptor camp. Looks like Joker's going to at least get the small camps away. Smite be Smite, and it's picked up by Trashy. Grabbed himself that one. But Trashy's been sort of the turnaround player for Splyce. His first 4 weeks of performance versus his most recent 4 weeks. A marked improvement. The meta shifted a little bit in his favor. Look at this. Jungle proximity time, the amount of time Trashy spends with his mates, the same across the last 8 weeks. But look how effective his kills plus assists at 15 minutes is in his kill participation.
Trashy as an individual just has a much better understanding of what he needs to be doing on the map and how better he can utilize this kind of pressure. It's great to see him as an individual really stepping up because he was one of the players that we had nothing but praise for in the summer split of last year. He was, again, one of the big turning points in setting up his laners for success, and now we see an all-in from both top laners in the top.
Well, there we go. The tank beats the carry. That's standard, right? At this level. I mean, it's recurve bow. Wonder needs a lot of time to get damage down, whereas Cabo, full rotation, drops Wonder to, what was that, like 25%? It shouldn't have a huge impact on the lane, though.
It's pretty good so far from what Splyce have been able to do. Now, what you're seeing is actually, this is great from Splyce because thanks to the early pressure that they were able to exert down in the bottom lane, the way in which they're constantly playing the harass play has forced Steelback to go back on a Vamp Scepter. Now, the reason why we're seeing more Lucian on the current patch is because very small changes were made to his Q and his W in the way in which his passive interacts, which means that it flows better. It feels more fluid and dynamic. And that means that he's also building in the Blade of the Ruin King, which actually hurts your laning phase quite a lot and can mean that if you fall behind early, you can't play as aggressively as you would typically like.
And it allows Steelback to basically ice skate around the map later in the game. Get those E's, those relentless pursuits down over and over. Dash forward, Mickey, not going to connect with the Flay. Didn't really make a big difference. And Mickey was the one that secured that Dragon #1, 8 minutes in. It's 1,000 gold in the lead for Splyce. It's an early Dragon. And Splyce will be pretty happy with this. They have a potential answer to the 4-1 that could come out from Vitality. They've got good pick-making potential. They've got decent engage, but it is very reliant on hitting those skill shots. Right?
And what you'll see from Splyce is, I would expect them really to be the playmakers, that when you have an Ash Arrow and a Elise Cocoon, you are looking to try and force a lot of skirmishes around the map. While they were setting up for a good teamfight composition, and while they definitely still have a viable teamfight composition, Nick, you can never underestimate Orianna, Ashe, Kennen, right?
Yeah.
It's not as potent as it necessarily would have been if they'd gone for the full AP Kennen. Instead, they are preparing for the possibility of, hey, if we fall behind in the early game for whatever reason, and that Vladimir is able to split push, what answer do we have to it? And that's why this Kennen is here, that's why this Kennen is going for this build.
Okay, so we'll find out if Kennen's build works out with support from Trashy. Gonna come toe-to-toe with Joker, but look at the mini-map. Cobby and Mickey are around. Enchanted Crystal Arrow could find a target if they decided to pull the trigger. The Trashy spotted out by the Warden. Again, this is Splyce. They initiate the lane swap. Hichani's a little late to respond because he's helping Joker in the jungle. And a lot of damage going onto this tower as support now from Trashy comes up in the river.
There's a lot of wave clear from Cabo, though. He's full health. He hasn't actually taken a huge amount of harassment from Wonder while he is at a significant lane deficit. The actual setup for that, Splyce took a lot longer than they would have liked. So now, Wonder's going to be forced to TP down bottom, and he needs to be careful.
Oh, wow. Teleport for teleport. Cabo matches it. The minion wave is slowly being shredded, and Wonder forced to flash to save his life.
Now Wonder, he used the ultimate to try and clear the minion wave as fast as possible, along with setting up the CC to prevent Vitality from getting the dive. Notice that he was able to stun both Steelback and Cabo Shard before they could successfully set up the dive, which means that he's able to get away with his life. But I don't know for how much longer he's going to be able to hold on to that tower.
All right, so it's a race for Tower First Blood. Very big gold bounty available for secure. Trashy stood right on top of a ward, so Vitality will keep pushing unabashedly in the bottom lane. Without Nautilus in the top lane, the wave clear is significantly lower. This should be Tower First Blood to Splyce.
Good movement from Splyce. They make the rotation from bot side to top. Utilize the fact that they got level 6 first. They'd already pushed Steelback underneath his turret down the bottom lane. And they will be able to net themselves an early advantage. Arrow comes out.
All right, connects onto Hichani. Flash over the wall for Trashy. Death sentence kills Hichani. First blood to Splyce.
Oh, Hichani. He ends up getting caught out. The vision from Splyce is deep enough that they're able to spot him as he's trying to recall. Questionable decision-making from Hichani. Why recall in your jungle when there's a tower right next to you? But still, it will be first blood going in favor of Splyce, and look at that gold advantage.
The 11th time that Hichani has died in an isolated manner, with none of his teammates around. This time around, unfortunately, just Splyce pulling the trigger. So they get first dragon, they get first tower, they get first blood. It's a 2,500 gold lead. And Splyce going to be extremely happy with the opening to this game.
Yep. So now all they do is, with Dragon off the board, they can actually look to set up a dive bottom lane, because now there's only one member left. The push is already coming out from Cobby.
Slicing Maelstrom's almost available. Where's the death sentence from Mickey? A lot of support from the rest of Splyce. Defensive flash. Wonder can connect. Blade of the Ruin King slows down Cabo. Point blank skill shot. And Mickey sets up another.
They don't even need all 5 members. Mickey and Wonder are able to get that themselves. Cabo even used his flash, and it wasn't enough. And look at this, the additional attack speed that Wonder had gotten from the Blade of the Ruin King. The fact that he was able to quickly apply those Mark of the Storms, get the stun, easy follow with the chain, very clean. I wouldn't even call that a dive. That was just a clean execution from Splyce.
I mean, Splyce are just running circles around Vitality. The first tower is picked up here for Vitality, but it's at the cost of Cabo's life and the bottom tower. And all of this vision, what? Splyce aren't even done. They're still putting pressure on the map.
Bear in mind that it was Splyce that made the proactive play first. They were the ones that got to the tower before Vitality. And because now there's no answer for Vitality, Splyce end up coming out ahead in the trade.
Such a clean opening to the game. And you know, the analyst desk, Shox and Crepper were talking about expectations versus reality. This was the expectation of what Splyce was going to do at the beginning of the split. Took them a while to find their gear, took them a while to, you know, improve a few patches as well. But what a great start against, look, it is also the 4th place team. You know, let's not disregard that fact.
But I think it's really worth praising how every member, except for arguably the mid laners because they weren't doing anything, just farming, but work together in order to guarantee the successful early game, because Wonder, he was constantly pushing in the top lane, netting himself a 50 CS advantage now at this point. The bottom lane, they took advantage of a very powerful level 1 to force Steelback and Hachani back. Trashy took a jungle path, which gave him level 4 before Joko got level 4, which means that he then moved into the jungle, kept applying pressure. Joko could not punish the pushing lanes of Splyce, and they end up getting this huge lead in the early game.
All right, but now will Splyce be able to react, engage from the depth charge? Trashy finds the lantern, and Mickey saves his jungler's life. It will be at the cost of a tower. Splyce, this time round, caught a little unawares, but they still have a sizable lead. And it feels like, to sort of summarize what you were saying a second ago, Vedius, the early game for Splyce, they had a game plan, and it feels like every single thing they wanted to accomplish happened, right?
Yeah.
They found the picks, they found the invades, they got the objectives, and this was the first counterplay from Vitality that has proved successful.
I think that it was just a little bit slow on the mark from Splyce. They were a little bit late to leave the bottom half of the jungle after they took that tower. They were still deciding, okay, what's the next objective we go for, because taking down that mid-tier 1 is a lot harder than taking down the outer towers. So now they need to better set up. What's our next game plan? Baron isn't really an option for them. Senkux, he tries to throw out the ball of doom, and unfortunately, it's just a ball of gloom for him.
It is indeed.
But Splyce, overall, they're playing the map very well. They are now even, or they have the advantage in terms of turrets, which they'll be pleased with. And their next objective should be towards this mountain drake. They've already got the deep vision set up in the bottom half. You can see that because they know where the majority of the Vitality members are, Mickey should feel pretty comfortable to walk in and start setting up this vision.
You're talking about the dragon. If Splyce are able to secure it, it will actually be the 62nd dragon that Vitality have conceded. They've given up, yes, they have currently given up 61 dragons throughout the course of the spring split. It is the most amount of dragons that they have given away.
Wow.
Yes, and it just shows you Vitality, in terms of the prioritization, not around their dragon pit. Also interesting to note,
hey, that's not fair.
CSD
that's
at
not
15.
Fair.
Hey, it still counts.
Last week he played Fizz into Gragas, and now he's playing Kennen into Nautilus. Like, definitely it's warranted. He likes to play this style. It is a fact, yes. And now we see the Dragon being started. This was the objective we were talking about. Will Vitality answer?
The answer is fight. Joko's going to get caught by a death sentence and the arrow. Double teleport into the river. Splyce smite down the dragon. It looks like Cabo. He cancels the TP. Hachani's caught by a cocoon. Splyce get dragon and 2 kills as well.
Very clean play from Splyce. They had good setup around the dragon. They had full vision control. I feel like the communication from Vitality was not on point.
Where's the sombrero? Flash! Sombrero it! Sombrero it! Steelback gets pulled backwards and Senkux with the solo kill.
Adios, mi amigo.
Oh my word. Wonder also gets a kill. Like, it's gone from bad to terrible.
Yep. Splyce, they're on a rampage right now. They are steamrolling through the lineup of Vitality. After they win a fight around the dragon, they just turn from one kill to another and this mid lane tower that we were talking about being difficult to be able to take, it's going to be an open door for Splyce to now walk through.
Yeah, open door indeed. Tower number 4. Man, what a great start to this game. Okay, so, Splyce, you've done everything else well. You've had a pick and ban that had answers to a team composition that Vitality put in place. Splyce had a good early game, which they've executed on well. Now we get to judge their ability to close.
Yep.
At 17 minutes, Vedius, that's a lot earlier than usual.
I mean, yes. I think that for Splyce now, you can start eyeing the Baron response in 3 minutes. I mean, like...
I think the Baron, it's not even there yet.
I know, right?
They need a telescope.
The problem is, like, normally you'd see this kind of advantage, this setup, at around the 22, 25 minute mark, right? And that's when Baron becomes an easier objective. When you have this big of a lead, I mean, like, they have a big item advantage, that's for sure, but now all Vitality have to do is just not fight them, right?
Yeah.
And instead, Vitality, they have to be so careful. They have no real control over the map. Just look at the vision coming out from Splyce. They are so comfortable in their setup. They've now moved Wonder off to a side lane, so that now they can just rotate between Wonder and mid, and they can just keep the pressure on, and eventually they're going to take one of these turrets.
Okay, where is the wave clear here? Steelback still got the culling on cooldown. It's just about to peel off in Splyce. They move away from where Vitality have numbers and instead go to secure a safe objective. Crystal Arrow, Cocoon, Death Sentence, all of the CC can lock somebody down. Hechani's making his way forward, and Mickey gets a death sentence onto Nuktak, brings Senkux for support. Nuktak instantly goes into Sanguine Pool and flashes to safety. He has the re-engage. Senkux in a little bit of trouble. Death sentence goes between two targets, and Vitality, they lose Joko. Cabo's forced to flash away, and this should be another dredge line into Kobe's waiting hands for the double kill.
Splyce with a very clean fight once again. They're able to catch Nuktak as he's trying to set up a flank around onto Splyce in the enemy jungle, but it goes against what we were just talking about. Vitality, they just needed to buy time, they needed to wait. They're at such a deficit at this point in the game that there is no chance that they can fight, because, like, just look at the level difference. Wonder, he's level 13. Senkux, he has the level advantage over his counterpart, and while Steelback, sure, he's been farming well off in a side lane. What does it matter when you've lost pretty much your entire base?
Is there enough time for an inhibitor? I think the answer to that is yes. Steelback, no culling available, not real support. 19-minute inhibitor. Paging the stats team. Is that the earliest inhibitor of the split?
I just asked them that, quick shot.
Yeah, but I asked on air, so my question's more valuable. We're going to make the stats team work today, Vedius. After this replay of course, Nuktak getting caught.
But you can see that the full vision in this jungle just enables Splyce to be able to land these kind of picks. Where's the support from Vitality, right? Oh, we don't have time for that because Mickey, he's forced to flash. We talked about being out of position, and then Mickey, he goes and B's out of position.
Don't B's out of position. You get stung. That's what happens. But Hechani, Mickey this time around survives with his life. All right, what's this? 10,000 gold lead. Inhibitor, 8 kills, 7 towers, 2 dragons, and nearly a flame horizon for Wonder, all before 20 minutes. If you wanted to gift wrap a Nexus, these are the steps that you need to follow.
I mean, like, so we've praised Splyce a lot, but I now actually want to criticize Joko a little bit because we have to look at his early game. He played Lee Sin as an answer to be able to sort of match the early pressure that Elise put out. His jungle pathing was set up in a way in which he was looking to try and gank top early, which in a way makes sense. You have a lot of utility with the Nautilus. You can look to punish the overextending Kennen, but then he paths back down throughout his jungle. So he didn't take an optimal early start. It seemed a little bit haphazard. He didn't really know what he was doing. I felt like the Vitality, again, they didn't come in with a clear game plan. They picked champions which were strong. They picked champions that made sense in terms of the laning against the enemy team, like it was safe. But then they seemed to come into this game without a real game plan.
It's also tough though, right? Like, yes, Joker has a champion that could have made a difference, but where? You know, he got invaded on early. The picks from Kobe onto Hechani in the jungle opened up a tower. You know, like, a lot of where Vitality started to fall over was from some of their laners being punished by a really clever Splyce.
I mean, it depends on which, it depends on which perspective you want to take, right?
Yeah.
Because the reason in which why Joko ended up getting invaded was because he chose not to start on his Raptors rather than starting on his blue, right? Like,
and the Hawk shot from Kobe, giving that information, allowing them to do it. Vedius, Baron has been started by Splyce.
As we predicted.
There we go. Very early on, there's no vision. Thank you, observers. Look at no wards from Vitality. The minimap is just littered with Splyce vision. The safest Baron we've seen in a long time.
It's actually impressive how one-sided this game is towards Splyce.
Let's look at the gold differences for Splyce over the last 8 weeks. We're going to split it into Splyce's first 4 weeks of performance versus their next 4 weeks of performance. And it is day and night. The red line is Splyce's gold difference on average from weeks 1 to 4. And the gold line is the last 4 weeks, and this game is definitely going to help that climb even further.
It's just evidence to show how much Splyce has grown in the second half of the split. They seem to really better understand how to get an early gold advantage and then how to utilize it and close out games. So Splyce right now, 22 minutes, they have the ban, they're knocking on the doors of Vitality's base.
Oh, they're knocking on multiple doors. The front door's gone down as Wonder's knocked out the bottom lane. Splyce are working on the back door. As that tower's under pressure, no one from Vitality is stopping Wonder. They can't deal with him. Witsand, Blade of the Ruined King, an army of minions at his side, and Inhibitor's down at 22 minutes, and he can even look to come in to pressure the Nexus or come in behind Vitality.
Splyce at this point, they don't even need to fight. Oh, good kick from Joko.
It is, but there's no support. Finally, Nuktak arrives, but the fight may already be over. Nuktak goes down, Wild Growth, a literal waste. Hechani's going to be the next target. Death Sentence won't catch him out, and Splyce, they're looking at the Nexus towers. Somehow, Wonder's done it under the base.
Wonder, he's looking to try and end the game himself, but can Steelback claw back at least one one kill for Vitality.
Hachani will not. Hitani is
Oh,
down.
Wonder!
Gets the stun. Relentless pursuit, but the range is too short. Steelback gets his first kill of the game before the fangs are sunk in. Splyce win the fastest game of spring and secure their spot in the quarterfinals.
Oh, Wonder. You had to just give away that kill, didn't you?
Look, I got very excited at the end. That was a very hype win moment for what was a 23-minute obliteration.
I was expecting more from Vitality. I thought that they would at least put up like nothing but praise for Splyce. They played that map very well. But I thought that maybe Vitality would at least try something. But I suppose with the composition, it's difficult to force fights, especially against Splyce, who had netted such a significant lead so early on in the game.
It is indeed. And you know, Splyce just got so fed so early. It was just a sweet victory. Very well played. You can see ecstatic smiles on their faces. And Vedius, I must let you know, the stats team has got back to me.
Yep.
The earliest inhibitor of the spring split was 18 minutes and 21 seconds, which is what Unicorns of Love were able to secure. This one at 19:06 doesn't quite cut it.
So Splyce is slacking, is what we're saying.
What they did do, however, despite not getting the earliest inhibitor, they won the game in the shortest time of spring so far.
Wow, congratulations, Splyce.
It's so hard. I mean, it was just such a good game from Splyce. And you can't really criticize Vitality a huge amount because it was proactive plays. Look, you can, but...
I mean, it's a combination of the two, right? Like, very small mistakes on the side of...
Vitality.
Like, let's think about, like, the level 1 play early on in the bottom lane, right? Hachani just walking up, losing half his health.
No,
you then
course.
lose the ability to push early on, right?
Fair.
One of the greatest powers of Lulu and Lucian is you just put the shield on the Lucian. He can then go aggressive. He can start to trade in. You have a range advantage over the Thresh, and you can look to try and take advantage of that, right? Which they conceded very early on because they were playing the lane super safe. They took a lot of harass. Joker with his early jungle pathing. Like, there are very small things that Splyce did a great job of punishing.
Very, very many things they did a great job of making even bigger. I mean, I don't think I've seen a snowball that clean or that well executed in a long time. And game one stomp, Splyce, they did secure that spot in the LCS Spring quarterfinals. Let's head over to the analyst desk to find out exactly how they did it.
Thank you very much. Quick shots. I also think that's very important. The fact that Splyce closed it out and had a super clean game, fastest win in the spring split, because they wanted to make a statement, or you'd want a team like Splyce to make a statement running into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I like what they did in the draft as well, because it suits their style very much so. I love Wunder on this cannon on the side lane. It also went against every historically strong point we made for Vitality, right? Like, what do we want to see Cabochard on? Carries, fighting, you know, who fits that style as well? Wunder. Cabochard gets put on Nautilus duty, he gets counterpicked with the cannon. That's an impossible matchup to play. The only thing you can do is get some CS. And then pray that your team wins the map, and it clearly wasn't happening with this draft. Bot lane was pushing in because Mickey X was playing fantastically. There was some really nice flays in lane, really punishing the lack of synergy between Hachani and Steelback. And I think Splyce was always in control.
Yeah, always in control. At 8 minutes and 30, they were 1,200 gold ahead. Wonder, as you said, was doing really well in that lane. Bottom lane was winning. Trashy also had a good influence on the map.
That's at that point where they were so even, and then eventually they understood how to take the game. And that's actually a beautiful set of map rotations. And Shocks, to really explain that, I'm going to need a bigger television, so you can stay here. But I really want to show the world how great that play was from Splyce, because this was just not rotations 101. This was every single action they did had a purpose, and it really worked out, especially if you consider how the replay started. We started off with a freeze from Hachani, so this is a nice play, right? Like Vitality, they see an opening, they're already behind in lane. Hachani's like, you know what? I'm going to catch these 5 creeps. Park the bus right here. Steelback, you get the easiest job as an AD carry in your life. You just have to farm these creeps in the turret. Now, Splyce, they know this is happening. So what they do is they send their bottom lane to the top lane and say, you know what? We're going to surprise Cabochard. Notice how Mickey and Kabi are not just running down the lane and playing for the turret. No, these guys are actually going to hide, wait for a window where they can maybe engage. And now Steelback sees he's sniffing something. He's like, I don't like this, guys. These guys should have been back in bot lane already. So you see Vitality play very defensively, and this is a good defense from Vitality. But Splyce are still playing super correct. They wait to go for the turret. The engage kind of gets foiled, and now this is a move I like personally from Vitality. They switch the map up. They say, you know what? We have one guy in the bottom, Steelback has been pushing. We can send Cabo go in for a dive, but a very well-timed cannon flash and get an ultimate makes it so that Wunder can stall the defense on the turret long enough. You know what happens on the other side of the map? Splyce eventually pushed through, and this should be kind of a net neutral exchange in a play that was started by Splyce, but a good defense by Vitality. But the problem is, right after, the power of Splyce determination picks through, because they get a nice arrow that's going to come out here and they get a single pick, and now it's no longer a case of an even trade with first turret going to Splyce. No, it is an additional kill, and the tempo and the flash Akun into hook, you know, all this synergy is much better for Splyce, and you can see Vitality, they were already behind and they start crumbling apart. Obviously, if you play strong on one side of the map, what you do when you base is you switch it back up, and that's what we see right here. Kabe down to the bottom lane, but look at Mickey. He peels off, and he's like, you know what? I don't need to defend Kabe. I can just join with my jungler, pull him over, or my top laner in this case, and they surprise Cabochard. And this is the kind of the experience. Wunder didn't go back to top lane. In solo queue, your top laner would always go back to the top side, but he knows if he goes top, he will just get dove, just like Cabochard got dove in the bottom lane. And this means there's nobody to defend. And yes, there's two people top lane, and Hachani and Lucian and Steelback rather are working on this top turret, but Splyce, again, much faster on the play. They get an extra kill again. They get a turret down here, and when they're already at the second tower, that's only when Joko start joining here with Steelback. And what's Joko doing? They're basing to defend the bottom lane. Again, Splyce one step ahead, one extra kill, then another kill, then an extra turret. They're really breaking down this game and just dismantling Vitality step by step. And that's pretty much it. Eventually, Senkux walks top, picks up the farm, and it just shows you if you're a great team and you're planning things together, it is really easy for you to kind of get ahead of your opponent as long as you have a plan. And Splyce, they had that plan, they broke down Vitality. That's enough from our side. Shox is getting lonely, so I need to get back to the desk. See you guys after break.